Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk from the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, Israel. Rabbi Chaim Richman here, together with Yitzchak Reuven for Temple Talk. Today is the 20th day of the month of Kislev 5777. It also happens to be the 20th of December 2016, the Shabbat, Parshat Vayeshev. And by the way, FYI, it's also Shabbat Mevarchim, the Sabbath of the blessing of the new moon of the month of Tevet, which will occur next week on Friday, December 30th, will become the first day of Tevet. And, of course, palpable excitement in the air because the festival of Chanukah is rapidly approaching and will be upon us on Saturday night, the 25th day of Kislev. And, by the way, Chanukah is the only festival that spans 2 months. It begins in Kislev and it continues into Tevet.
Rabbi.
Yitzchak.
I'm going to interrupt you right now.
Whoa.
Speaking of palpable anticipation. Excitement. Well, there's a lot of excitement being expressed out there about our brand new video, which we just launched yesterday. Holy Temple Mythbusters, Part 1, Introduction. First of a short series that will be coming out in the upcoming months, and everybody has to watch this video. It's a short video. It's a brilliantly produced video. Stars Rabbi Richman.
Oh gosh!
And it's Mythbuster is what it's all about. It's busts all the misconceptions and myths and misunderstandings of what the Torah says and what our obligation is toward the rebuilding of the Holy Temple. And it does it, I must say, Rabbi, in a very beautiful and eloquent way with animation.
We're excited about it. This is a series, actually, that was envisioned and planned a number of years ago. And in fact, inside information here, this video, the introduction, was actually made quite a while ago, maybe 4 years ago. I don't even look like that anymore. I gained like 500 pounds since then, I think. Lost all my hair, my teeth.
The opposite.
A little bit that's left is white. It's just that we weren't able to launch this series for various reasons that kept coming up. But now, indeed, we have launched the first chapter, the introduction.
Just in time for Chanukah, I must add. It's perfect timing for Chanukah because it's about rebuilding the Holy Temple.
And indeed, the series, its goal is to explore a lot of the misconceptions, stereotypical, what is that in English? Deot kedumot, preconceived notions that people have about the Holy Temple. And yes, we are trying to launch something that will generate discussion and stimulate people to be interested in looking deeper into the sources, what the sources actually say, not just what people have been told and been repeating so long. For example, in the introduction, we touched upon a number of questions that we're going to be exploring in depth in the coming episodes. So the next video that we're going to be releasing in just a couple of weeks, I believe.
In about a month from now.
That's going to be dealing with the very, very important question as to the circumstances surrounding the building of the third temple, and it's going to address the idea that a lot of people entertain, that the third temple is going to miraculously descend, ready-made from heaven. And a lot of learned Jewish people cite various sources as proof of this idea that a building is going to come down from heaven, and that's going to be the third temple. And we're going to explore those sources and ask this question: is that possible? Is that an authentic Jewish thought? Can the temple that we are supposed to be commanded to build, could that actually descend from heaven? I guess I'm kind of giving it away what our stance is on that. The next chapter, that's going to be released some weeks after that, deals with the question of which comes first, the Messiah or the building of the temple? Is indeed the building of the temple the purview of the Messiah to attend to, or is it something that all of Israel is supposed to attend to? Future chapters are going to be dealing with the issues of the geopolitical reality of the Holy Temple and whether or not it is something that should even be considered because of the oft thought notion that it will be so provocative that it will plunge the world into war. Another chapter that we're going to be hosting deals with the concept of the korbanot, the offerings in the Holy Temple. Is that relevant? Is that something that even applies to us today? And how do we understand in general the korbanot? And all of this trying to do in a new and refreshing way, as you mentioned, with some animation and with access to authentic sources, to try and do some recalibration of these important, timeless, eternal concepts that relates to Israel's covenant with God, and more so that relates to the central role of the Holy Temple in the life of the Jewish people and of all of mankind, something that of course has never been revoked, but something that beckons to us to fulfill in every generation, which, by the way, is the theme of Chanukah, whose very name refers to the rededication of the altar in the Holy Temple. And so if you're celebrating Hanukkah wherever you live, whether in Israel or abroad, and you're going to be lighting the Hanukkah lights, and you're going to be celebrating this wonderful festival, which, by the way, is a festival that really recognizes and acknowledges the heroism of the Jewish people and the challenges that they faced in that generation and how they rose to the occasion and fought. And of course, the miracle that God wrought because the Jewish people were willing to fight for their homeland, for their holy temple, for Jewish values. If you're into that and you appreciate the festival of Hanukkah, then you should certainly appreciate this video series because, again, nothing's changed, you know. Hanukkah in the year 2016 that people are celebrating, and people enjoy their family time together, and they might even give gifts, which, by the way, is not a Jewish custom, and they might eat special foods associated with the festival, and it's a wonderful time, and the Chanukah brings a lot of light into the world. But we cannot forget the main theme of Hanukkah, which is the fact that the Holy Temple is the key to the peace of Israel and the whole world. So, yes, we are very excited about this.
You can watch our video on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, on our website. And speaking of YouTube, we're very pleased this week when our YouTube viewer number surpassed 5 million. We have to date now posted 951 videos on YouTube, and they have accumulated over 5 million views. It was just broke 5 million, I think, on Sunday, and today's Tuesday. It's already 5,003,000 and something.
Gosh.
So word's
There's
getting
no
out
accounting
there.
For some people's taste. Nothing. I gotta tell you, Yitzchak.
Yeah.
Parshat Vayeshev, things are heating up.
It's a heck of a parsha.
It's always been so difficult to understand the whole concept of the animosity that existed between Joseph's brothers and himself. Joseph's position in the family, Yaakov's attitude towards him, the coat that he made for him, the terrible way in which the brothers are portrayed by the Torah itself that would have us assume that these were behaving in a way that was not seemly, and that basically they were acting like a bunch of ruffians that waylaid him and wanted to kill him. And of course, Yosef's descent into Egypt and the incredible divine providence that governed over every move that he made, and the miscarriage of justice that he found himself embroiled in, and everything that was going on. And of course, the unusual phenomena that these parshiot of Yosef always come out during Chanukah. There is a connection between Yosef in many ways and the festival of Chanukah. In fact, did you know, Yitzchak, that Yosef, the name Yosef, Joseph, right, in Gematria, which means the Hebrew equivalent of a numerical value of the letters, the numerical... What are you saying?
8 times Yud Kei Vav Kei.
I wasn't even thinking of that, but you're a great Kabbalist. I wasn't going to go that deep.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to go pretty deep,
I'm
though.
backing out.
I was going to go pretty deep. But I'm no match for you. I was just going to say that Yosef has the numerical value of Antiochus.
Ouch.
Which is strange, ain't it?
Hey, it's
Antiochus, the wicked king, who decreed the terrible decrees over Israel in the time of Chanukah. What does that mean? Why? Why is Yosef the gematria of Antiochus, the numerical value, which is, of course, a time-honored level of Torah interpretation, which is very, very deep? That question I am going to explore in this week's Torah video lesson, where we're going to try and understand who Yosef was and his nature and what was so unusual about him and his unique role in the unfolding destiny of the Jewish people for all time, what he represents. That's what I really want to get into in the Torah portion this week, which I'm looking forward to, which will be broadcast later this week. So the Parsha is incredible.
I'm sorry, Yitzchak is 8 times.
Oh.
Yosef is 6 times.
Okay, fine. Parsha is incredible. It's also, not only does it include Yosef's sale to the Ishmaelites and his ultimate descent through the Midianites into Egypt, and his sale to Potiphar, the courtier of Pharaoh, the chamberlain of the butchers. Then all of a sudden, we have the incident of Yehuda and Tamar, which is extremely extreme and unseemly, and actually results ultimately in the birth, many generations later, of none other than King David himself, and ultimately of the Mashiach, who basically bails out and sets right the entire world. What's that all about, coming from Yehuda and Tamar? Lot of ink spilled on that question. So the Parsha ends up, of course, with Yosef in a very dark place, in prison, and not remembered by the chamberlain of the cupbearers. And it's really something that on so many levels has to be understood, but on its most simple level, we know that there was a tremendous misunderstanding between Yosef and the brothers, but that each side was acting out of a very high motivation for Hashem's will. We know that the brothers were not simply jealous of the coat that their father gave this son that was born to him in old age, this precious son. It wasn't just a question of sibling rivalry or anything on that level. It was actually a question of what is going to be the shape and nature and direction of the nation of Israel, and how to bring about redemption. And this is a deep issue that the commentators are very eloquent about, how the brothers perceived Yosef as more like the other sons that were born, more like Ishmael and Esav. They thought that process wasn't finished yet. They thought that he was part of the negative traits. They didn't understand him. He was misunderstood. He was a very misunderstood person. Why is that? Again, it's something that we're going to be speaking about deeper in the video lesson this week. What was it about him that they found so hard to understand? In any event, Yosef represents a vast power for the people of Israel and the world, and an attribute that is extremely important for the redemption of Israel and all mankind. So these are just some of the questions that come up when we consider the verses that we encounter in this week's Torah portion. And again, there is a strong parallel between Yosef's life and many of the aspects of what he represents and the story of Chanukah, which, of course, can easily be said to be one of the most beloved times of year for the entire nation of Israel. Even people that are not particularly affiliated with Jewish practice, people that are not particularly observant, they wouldn't I think everybody's observant, so I don't like to use these labels. But people that are not outwardly labeled as observant, they identify with Chanukah. And it is an amazing time. Why is that? What is it about Chanukah that is so compelling? And of course, basics that we know about it. The festival that begins nightfall, the 25th day of Kislev, is a celebration of the rededication of the Holy Temple, which commemorates the victory of the family of the Hashmonaim, which was a family of Kohanim, of priests serving in the Holy Temple. They were victorious over the Greek invaders. It was a miracle. They were hopelessly outnumbered. By the way, that war was absolutely horrible. It did not end when Chanukah happened. The war continued, I believe, for up to another 25 years. Yeah. Countless Jews had already been slaughtered by the time the Chanukah story took place, with Chanukah story meaning the rededication of the altar. So the Holy Temple had been desecrated, but it wasn't only that. It was decrees that had been enacted against the Jewish religion, against the people of Israel, against the way of the Torah. These decrees had been designed to conceal the presence of God in the world. They were aimed at the God of Israel. They were aimed at Israel's morale. They were decrees against the singularity of Israel's relationship with God. They were forbidden from studying Torah. They were forbidden from observing Shabbat and the new moon, and from circumcising their children. And they were forced to state, it was actually the words of our sages, they were forced to write on the horn of a ram the words, "We have no portion in the God of Israel." In other words, these outsiders, this element of this foreign element that invaded the land of Israel. Okay, listen carefully, see if this rings any bells, right? This foreign element that invaded the land of Israel is trying to drive a wedge between the people of Israel and God, and trying to make a spin, basically, and convince them through psychological warfare as well as physical warfare that they're alienated from their own God. So everybody familiar with the basics of the story knows that Yehuda, who was the son of Matityahu, who was the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, right, known as the Maccabee, like the popular singing group. Maccabee actually is an acronym, Rashi Tevot, that stands for Mi Chamocha Ba'elim Hashem, who is like you among gods, Hashem. And this family of Kohanim, against all odds, they rallied the people, not all of the people, because there was a lot of opposition from within the nation. They rallied, they fought, they were victorious, they re-entered the temple to cleanse it and renew the divine service. They found only one vessel of oil that had not been rendered impure, that contained only enough pure olive oil to light the temple menorah for one day. The lamp stayed lit for 8 days. That is a tremendous oversimplification of the story. In reality, there's so much more. The fact that from the very beginning of creation, the 25th day of Kislev had already been singled out and designated as a special day of salvation for all generations, that it's a day upon which the highest and most pure divine light begins to illuminate the world. It's a light that was hidden since the very beginning of time. And this is the concept of the hidden light of Chanukah, the 36 flames that are kindled, not counting the shamash, which would bring it to 44, right? The 36 lights correspond to the 36 hours during which the Or Haganuz, the hidden light, served Adam and Eve in the garden before things went haywire. And then Hashem hid that light for the future rectified world. But a little bit of it begins to shine and sparks and begins to glow every year during Chanukah. And that's why it's so important to light these lights, because we are bringing that light into the world. And that is basically what it's all about. It's about the light of the Holy Temple. It's about the light that Aaron, the high priest, kindled. And we light that every night. And the indefatigable quintessential spirit of the Jewish people, our faith that never dies, that is a reality, that light is the light that shines through those lights. And that's why there's a beautiful teaching in the Chassidut, Baal Shem Tov emphasized, that the simplest Jew, not necessarily a great scholar or a rabbi or a high priest, the simplest Jew who kindles the Chanukah lights, the first night of Chanukah, can rise to a higher spiritual level than even the high priest who enters into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur. And that's a light that we bring into the whole world. So it's a very, very big opportunity to connect with something greater than ourselves, to be part of a continuum of generations. And we have to point out that we're a bridge to the future, because Chanukah, also the root of that word is not only dedication, but it's also chinuch, which is education. And it's all about the next generation. It's all about the children. It's all about that we're kindling those lights, seeing the same light that Aaron brought into the Holy Temple, seeing the same light that our grandparents saw and that our children see, and bringing it to our children. And it's all about making a statement that nobody can drive us from our homes, nobody can drive a wedge between us and the God of Israel. And again, as we've mentioned previously, as we mentioned last week, once again, we find ourselves basically at war over our own homes, our own rights to live in our own land. What's really changed? What's really changed? A lot's changed. A lot's changed. The state of Israel has changed every equation forever, and we are part of the greatest miracle of all time. And the greatest Hanukkah miracle is happening all around us all the time. It's everyday life in the state of Israel. And it's all just a tremendous, tremendous gift and part of a trajectory of history that's being written as we speak.
Love that word, trajectory. Even as we speak, we're hurtling forward toward rededication of the temple once more, God willing, in the not distant future as we work toward it.
There's the music from the Nobel laureate of the Jewish people.
Sources.
That's literature. That's literature for you. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Temple Talk.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. This is Yitzchak Reuven with Rabbi Chaim Richman here in Jerusalem. Today is the 20th day of the month of Kislev, 5777. And lo and behold, it's the 20th day of the month of December 2016. This week's Parsha, this week's Torah reading is Vayeshev, which we have been talking about, and we will continue to talk about in this second half. This coming Shabbat is Shabbat Mevarchin, in which we will bless the upcoming new month, which starts Thursday night, Friday, that being the month of Tevet. And
Thursday night, Friday night next.
Thursday night, Friday next, right. Next week from this Thursday night, Friday.
30th of December.
To quote a very beloved man. And Rabbi...
And Hanukkah starts Saturday night.
And Hanukkah, I knew I was forgetting something. Hanukkah starts Saturday night. And of course, the theme of forgetfulness and remembering is a very important part of our Parsha. But I want to talk about something else in our Parsha, which actually is connected to remembering. And I'm going to connect what I'm about to say with Hanukkah and with the way people observe Hanukkah these days. And the fact that Hanukkah has become a very, very universal celebration. You know, everybody, it seems, likes to adopt Hanukkah and take the theme from it, which they desire to take from it. You know, the President of the United States traditionally lights a Chanukah, and which I'm sure he calls a menorah, and and says some beautiful message about, freedom and liberation and all those wonderful things. And it's become very universal. And it has taken on this glow of universality and multiculturalism. And if you want to be free, you just got to lose those bonds and chains that chain you down to your past and your narrow, origins, and just join the brotherhood of man, and we'll all be good and equal. And it's all very sweet and wonderful.
It's kind of, they're bastardizing it into some sort of statement of globalization, when
it's
actually it's extremely nationalistic.
Right. It's very, very, very universal and parv. It's like it's got no taste anymore. It doesn't mean anything. And what the connection between that and the parsha is that Yosef always mentioned, wherever he went and to whoever he was introduced in Egypt, I am a Hebrew. That's where I came from. I came from the land of the Hebrews, and I was sold as a slave, but that's my origin, that's who I am. He never forgot it. And of course, tradition holds that Yosef's bones were eventually taken out of Egypt, we know, when Israel left Egypt a few generations later, and on the merit of the fact that he never forgot who he was, where he came from, even in his most difficult moments, when he was being pursued by Potiphar's wife, and he saw a vision of his father, which said, Yosef, you know who you are, and you know how to behave, and you know what's right, and you know what's wrong. He never, ever forgot who he was where he was coming from, who he belonged to, who his people were. And that's what Hanukkah really is about. It's holding on to who we are and our own identities. And, the Greeks were, the Greek occupiers were doing their darndest to erase that memory of who the Jews were. They were doing it forcefully. And our ancestors would not allow that, rose up against it, which is why we celebrate Hanukkah to this day, and that's really what the celebration is about, among other things, and that is not forgetting who we are, not forgetting that, yes, we are part of the vast tapestry of humanity, and we're one of the nations of the family of nations, but we are this specific nation with this specific Torah and this specific relationship with God, the creator of the world. So that, I think, is a very, very tight connection between Yosef, as he expresses himself repeatedly in this parsha, and the message, the real essence of Chanukah.
Yosef calls himself an Ivri, a Hebrew,
right,
which Abraham was called. It's not just the ancient name of the people of Israel. It's a very powerful idea, meaning from the other side. And that's the root of that word, Ivri, Ever, is from one side. Mm-hmm. That it was like being up against the world's idolatry. And, the truth is that I mentioned earlier the hidden light, that is revealed on Chanukah. In last week's Torah portion, Vayishlach, in the video lesson, I mentioned this amazing idea that the little container that Yaakov went back for, mm-hmm. was actually none other than a container of oil, which ostensibly was the oil that he used when he finally did get to Beit El, and he poured it over the altar again. But there is an idea that was the oil that made it all the way to the time of the Second Temple and became the oil of the Chanukah story. And there's two like tracks in the Chanukah story. There's two parallel ideas that are reflected. One is the miracle of the oil, and the other is the miracle of the battle. Interestingly, and this I think is extremely significant, the prayers that we recite during Hanukkah that are acknowledgement and thanks for the great miracles that Hashem did for us during these days, they don't mention the oil. Mm-hmm. The sages, when they talk about Hanukkah in Tractate Shabbat, of the Talmud, they talk about the oil. But the prayers that were penned by the sages don't mention the oil. They mention the battle and the heroism and the bravery and the tremendous turnabout that took place. And what you really see is that the hidden light that's revealed is activated by the heroism. It's activated by the courage, by the willingness to take a stand, like Yosef the Ivri, like to say that we're from this side. It's a certain faith and action that can drive us to be able to take a stand. And if you understand that Yaakov went back for this oil, and as we mentioned last week, the idea of not
back to the other side,
letting anything go without first attempting to rectify it as best as possible. Everything in this world has a spiritual essence. Every object, this whole idea, again, as we mentioned, like the Torah doesn't even tell us specifically why he went back, just like it doesn't tell us who he wrestled with. It doesn't tell us why he went back, but it's this whole tradition of commentary that, they were these pachim katanim, they were these small vessels. What was in the vessel, he went back for that. And the whole idea about the tzaddikim are so careful with their possessions because they don't steal, and therefore they're something that they worked hard for is precious to them because they know that it's something that Hashem arranged for them to have. But that's so much more than that. The idea that everything has a spark of godliness in it. It's a worldview, which actually is the opposite of globalization, because it's instead of everything morphing into one mass that's meaningless because it's all based on ego and the drive for more and more possession, it's about representing Hashem's will in this world, which is really what Chanukah is all about, and which is really why we place the lights outside the house, or at least facing the outside, because it has to do with the first lesson of all, which is how important it is to have a house and what that house should represent. And again, the chinuch is education, is the future, is what we are teaching our children. So, all the decrees that were made against Torah and its observance by the Greek invaders, it was an attempt to foist, if you would, a type of globalization upon the people of Israel, because it was an attempt to foist chachma yivanit, which means the Greek wisdom, in the words of our sages, on the people of Israel. And Greek wisdom is all about only believing in what you can prove, what you can demonstrate scientifically, without any spiritual underpinnings or essence at all. It was about the celebration of, and I'm being very sarcastic here, the nobility of man and art and all the things that are touted today by people that take God out of everything and say this is what we've accomplished, this is what we are. And of course, the interesting insight of the Hebrew secrets of the language is that the word Yavan is made up of Yud, Vav, final Nun. It's basically three strokes, three single pen strokes that are that each one is longer than the other. It's a small Yud, and then it's a Vav, and then it's a final Nun. In other words, it's yes, but not only is it descending, as it were, but it's also one-dimensional. It's just a simple stroke, and it's about seeing only surface, seeing the surface, the celebration of the body, etc. Which is again many themes that we are up against today. And again, I'll just, as a little spoiler, teaser that is, that's why Yosef is the secret to counteract. That's why Yosef had to precede the children of Israel and go into Egypt. It was all part of a tremendous tapestry of Hashem's providence and salvation. That it was all part of this tremendous setup, this animosity. It was necessary for the children of Israel to descend to Egypt. It was necessary for Yaakov himself to go there. And through that came about a tremendous spiritual maturation of the people. They had to develop as a nation in the darkness of Egypt. And Yosef facilitated all of that, and only he could, because of his great spiritual strengths. And, there's another incredible idea that, Yaakov passed away on Sukkot, And Chanukah, in a way, on many levels, is a continuation of Sukkot. It's kind of the end of a certain era, because even when it comes to bringing the first fruits in the Holy Temple, they can actually be brought, albeit without the recitation of the Vidui Dvarim, of the accompanying verses. But the first fruits could actually be the avad. If there's no other choice, they could be brought until Chanukah. Chanukah ends an era, in a way. There's even an idea that it might sound somewhat whimsical, but there's an idea that Chanukah is the final opportunity to do teshuvah from the Yamim Noraim, from the days of awe, from Yom Kippur, and that's what they say, that Matityahu is begematria. I forgot. Is it teshuvah? I can't figure it out right now. Pen and paper. I think so. The idea being that Chanukah is like the end of a certain period of the year, but interestingly, Yaakov, who passed away on Sukkot, was buried on Chanukah. Because the 70 days of
70 days. The first
mourning.
day of Chanukah is 7 days after.
Right.
After the first day of Sukkot.
Right. So this whole period of time that we're in now, as we've been reading these parshiot, are actually very much dominated by the power, the spirit of Yaakov himself, and this preparation for the exile that we're going to be reading soon. When we finish with the month of Kislev, which of course is the month of dreaming, the month of dreams. All the Torah's dreams in the book of Bereshit all fall during this month of Kislev. Yosef's dream is what catapulted him to power, and ultimately was substantiated by Pharaoh's dream.
Yeah, and along the way, the dream of the two other fellow inmates who had their dreams interpreted by Yosef, and one, of course, was returned to his position as the Sarah Mashkim. How do you translate that? The
Chamberlain or the cupbearer.
And of course, remembered Yosef only 2 years later, when Paro had his dream, which we'll read about next week. Since we're speaking about dreams and remembering, let me just remind us now that next Thursday night,
Give a date, Yitzchak.
during the
so
week
confusing.
of Hanukkah, the 29th of Kislev, which happens to be the 29th of December, the Temple Institute will be conducting now it's an annual tradition of a menorah lighting ceremony, which takes place every year during Hanukkah in Jerusalem's Old City, and the 7 lamps of the menorah are kindled by Kohanim, temple priests, who are students of the Temple Institute's Nezer HaKodesh Institute for Kohanic Studies, which, if you remember, we had a campaign for in this past summer to raise money for these particular events, and so that we can continue to teach and train these Kohanim so they can be ready for service in the Holy Temple. May it be soon in our days. Mm-hmm. And of course, this ceremony is a public ceremony. Everybody's invited.
Public event.
Everybody's invited.
Public celebration will be musical accompaniment from the Levitical choir.
7 o'clock.
Where?
I believe in the Old City. In the corridor. And we have a notification of it posted on our Facebook page, on our website, plus a telephone number, which you can call for more details. If you happen to be around town during the week of Hanukkah, you are invited to participate, to join, and to see. It's very, very moving, very beautiful ceremony, because the Kohanim are dressed as Kohanim, and they'll be using pure olive oil that we have prepared again this year for this purpose. And it's a very moving ceremony, and it is, again, they're not lighting a Chanukiah, they're not lighting a Hanukkah candelabra, they're lighting the temple menorah, but of course the Hanukkah candelabra is based on the temple menorah, even though it has one
Some
extra
people get confused about this. The Chanukah candelabra, which many people refer to with the word menorah, is actually not a menorah at all. That's why in modern Hebrew it's called a Chanukah, which basically means a specially designed Hanukkah lamp.
Right.
Chanukah has 8 branches, which commemorates the 8 days of the miracle of Hanukkah. The festival lasts for 8 days, and a candle is lit for each day. But the menorah in the Holy Temple has 7 branches. Actually, there's actually a prohibition in Jewish law from making a 7-branched candelabra, because that is only to be used in the Holy Temple. But of course, the candelabra, the menorah that the Temple Institute created, is of 7 branches because it's actually made for the Holy Temple, which is the whole point.
So anyway, you're all invited to participate and be part of that very beautiful event. Next Thursday, not this, but next Thursday, the 29th of December, 7 o'clock in the evening. 7 o'clock or is it 5 o'clock? Let me get this straight, Reb. I'm going to look.
We should have your facts ready before you come to the microphone.
I wish I did, but I'm just confusing myself. I'm sorry, it begins at 5 p.m. I repeat, 5 p.m. next Thursday in the old city of Jerusalem in Nicardo, which is the ancient Roman marketplace. So we can also revel in the fact that the Romans came, conquered, and disappeared, and lo and behold, we're still here.
Yes, I think there will be some gloating over the fact that they're gone.
Gloating will take place. Yeah, there can be a little gloating. Don't overdo it.
Yitzchak.
Yes.
There's a coat in the beginning of our story.
Yes.
A coat that Yaakov made for his son Yosef, and ostensibly the coat seems to be the cause for the consternation and jealousy of the brothers. And this coat, as you know, we've taught about it extensively over the years. Coat is actually maybe not a new coat that was made by Yaakov. The verse says Vayaslo. He made him, but it's also understood as he gave it over to him. The coat is actually the original coat of Adam.
Well, the oldest coat in the world.
The original coat of Adam himself that we read about in the Parshat Breshit, that God himself made for him. And that coat is symbolic of the role of Adam in this world. And that understanding sheds a little bit more light about the conflict between Yosef and his brothers and what it was all about. It was about how to serve God in this world, and that was their misunderstanding. Again, more about this in the video lesson, but the idea is that coat is something very significant because it conveys the mantle, it reflects the mantle of responsibility of being a descendant of Adam. And of course, as we like to teach about when we come to the book of Vayikra and we dwell on the role of the Kohanim in the Holy Temple, especially the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. The Kohen Gadol, we like to call him everyman, because he really represents the rectification of humanity as he serves in the Holy Temple. And he's wearing his special garments, the Bigdei Kuhuna, the garments of the high priest, which are very unusual in that they're made of certain colors, right? They're made of crimson and the sky blue and gold. And the colors of the garments of the high priest are the very same colors that were in the coat of Yosef, because it's all one theme, one continuation of the garment of Adam Harishon, of Adam. And by the way, that was actually, again, the coat that was in Rivka's tent that Esav had used, that came all the way from Adam and was kidnapped by Nimrod and was with Noah on the ark and came ultimately to Yaakov, and Yaakov gave it over to Yosef.
Well, it came to Esav.
Right.
He stole
Esav killed Nimrod in order to take it.
And had it in his closet. And when he went out to hunt for food for Yitzchak, Rivka arranged to place it on.
But the important
Yaakov.
thing is what it represents, and that is the idea of the responsibility of man in this world.
The mantle of responsibility.
To uplift
Literally,
everything.
Yeah.
And Chanukah has a great deal to do with that as well, because it was about the Jewish people standing up and fighting for what they believe in. And that's the ultimate message of Chanukah. It's not about just sufganiyot, donuts, jelly donuts, and potato pancakes, which is very, very nice, by the way. But what it's really about is...
No, I'm not a big fan of the sufganiyot.
A lot of carbs there,
Potato
but the potato
pancakes, on the
also
other
have a lot of carbs. The important thing is that we light these lights because the Jewish people stood up to fight. And the holiday of Chanukah is about the Jewish people and everybody, like you say, who wants to say, who believes, who wants to join in and say, this is our home, these are our children, this is our land, this is the temple of our God, this is our Torah, and this is our culture, and we refuse to be destroyed, and we refuse to allow anybody to destroy us. So it's about daring to be real enough to have the courage and the strength to bring the light of God into this world. That is the legacy of Chanukah.
Amen.
Daring to have the courage and the strength to believe that Hashem will help us.
And with that, we wish everybody a very, very, very joy-filled and light-filled Chanukah, and which begins Saturday nights. And we'll be back next week to celebrate Chanukah once more with everybody. Thanks for being with us. Temple Talk.